Beautiful morning here in Sonoma, California, in a beautiful part of the country. Happy Father's Day weekend, all you dads watching at home. It's time for the first of two practices here at the Infineon Raceway, 1.99-mile road course. See the cars rolling out. Brian Vickers is going to start from the pole position alongside Kyle Busch tomorrow in the Toyota Save Mart 350. And good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Burns alongside Larry Mack and Jeff Hammond, two of my favorite dads. And, you know, Jeff, we look at a race weekend as a continuum. Yesterday was about, you said, driver orientation in that 90-minute practice. Then we qualified. We saw Brian Vickers on the pole. So what's the agenda in the first of these two practices?
Well, first and foremost, happy Father's Day to you and to Larry and everybody out there watching. But the key thing right now is, Steve, we're going to continue that driver orientation, because every time you come here, you've got to get into a rhythm. Yesterday, it's attack the racetrack, get as much speed as you can out of that car, get you a good qualifying position. Now, we got to start thinking about tire management. We got to think about, you know, taking care of the transmission. We got to find the right gear selection for that transmission and working with your brakes. So all these things are going to be played out during this first practice, so you can kind of get your rhythm going, know exactly what the tires are going to do, and also to kind of judge your competition about who is going to wind up being the guy to beat tomorrow.
And the thing that will also go on in this 45-minute practice, this first practice session, is there's a lot of guys that's interested in learning, but there's not a lot of guys that's interested in teaching. And what I mean by that, you've got a lot of drivers, they've not figured this racetrack out, especially some of our young guys. You've got guys right now that have race cars that aren't driving very good, and then you have the guys that are fast, like Jeff Gordon that's won here 4 or 5 times, that understand this racetrack. So what these guys that's trying to learn, they may go out there and try to follow one of these guys, but these guys said, no, I'm not here to give schooling. I'm not here to give lessons. You go on by me. I want to just try to make my car a little bit better. We'll have a lot of that going on, I think, actually, in both of these practice sessions.
Well, joining us in this show, we go down to the garage area and Marty Snyder.
Guys, certainly one of the things in this practice session we'll also be watching for fuel mileage. Many of the cars out there right now have exactly 1 gallon of fuel in them. They'll run the car out of gas to see what they'll do and how much they can go on fuel. Jeff Gordon, however, very excited for this practice. Talked to him moments ago before he climbed in. They have not been in race trim this entire weekend, so this is the first shot for them to be in race trim. And inside the car, Gordon has his right hand taped up completely underneath his glove. He said, I don't want to have blisters today before we even start racing tomorrow. Ralph Shaheen.
Marty, I just spoke to Ryan Pemberton. He's a crew chief for Brian Vickers, who's starting on the pole for the race on Sunday here at Infineon. And he said, we're going to do a little bit of a longer run, about 10 laps. We want to see what the balance of the car does. We got good speed out of the car. Now we just need to know, where does it go? Does it get loose? Does it get tight? How does it handle? They want to find that balance, guys, and then they'll start adjusting from there.
All right, thank you, Ralph. The car's out onto the racetrack now, and Jeff, I know you want to talk about Jeff Gordon.
Well, the thing is right now, you know, I think Larry and a lot of us have been, you know, talking about this racetrack. This is a very physical racetrack. You have to work to be successful being a road racer. You've already heard from Marty talking about the 24. He's taped the palm of his hand up. And what he's worried about, folks, is he's working that shifter. He's probably one of the guys that's going to be shifting more than anybody else around here. Jeff's not afraid. He knows how to do it. He knows how to make this thing work as far as second to third, back to second. You know, he's not afraid to work that shifter and work that race car around, and he doesn't want to make that palm of his hand get sore in the next couple hours of practice here for tomorrow's race.
And not to mention the sore back that he's continuing to deal with. And Larry, it was so much fun yesterday having Kyle Petty involved in the qualifying show, and it brings to mind, you guys have touched on this before. You've got to have finesse here. These cars are also on the verge of being out of control. And as Jeff said, you're going to wrestle this car around the racetrack. That's quite a fine balance.
Well, it is. And of course, as you get into a run, the tire that Goodyear has brought here, it seems to be quicker than what we had here a year ago. But because it has more grip, it's going to give up. In other words, these cars are going to start sliding around more and more and more. Where you beat people at a road course is not right there where Jeff Gordon is, right there. You don't beat people getting in the corner. That may be where you make your pass, but where you beat them is getting off the corner, getting to the next set of corners. But that's interesting what Marty Snyder was talking about as far as what a lot of these teams are doing. We know these fuel cells hold roughly 19 gallons, but because of the challenges of going left and right, unlike at an oval, the fuel pickup in these fuel cells are normally right in the rear center part of the fuel cell at the bottom. You want to know not how much the fuel cell holds, how much will the fuel cell pick up. They'll run it out of fuel, they'll go to the fuel pumps, they'll get a reading of gasoline down to the 10th to know exactly how much they can figure on tomorrow picking up.
Now, one thing I've noticed, I've been on Jeff Gordon since the start of this practice. He let Kurt Busch and Ryan Newman go by him. He's now got the 99 of Carl Edwards in behind him. And, you know, you got to believe he's in race trim right now. If he's doing a fuel mileage run, I might be one of the reasons why he's letting some of these guys go. You go do what you want to do. I'm just going to go through this process, figure out my fuel mileage right quick, and see if everything's working there before I really get serious about how quick I want to run.
But I believe what's going on right here is exactly what I talked about. Carl Edwards is struggling here. He was 34th yesterday in qualifying. I think he's trying to size up how his race car is, knowing that 24 car will be a factor tomorrow.
He is the master. I mean, if you're going to go to somebody to get a lesson, it's not a bad one to go follow.
Early in this practice, Ryan Newman, Kurt Busch, Mark Martin, the quickest. Stay with us here at the Infineon Raceway in Sonoma, California. NASCAR Sprint Cup Practice on Speed is brought to you by the new Toasty Torpedo. Quiznos. Toasty. Watching Jeff Gordon, Carl Edwards, Greg Biffle, Mark Martin also just behind that pack.
You know, I don't think that the 24 car is as good as they'd like to be right now. You know, the question is, how many laps did they have on their tires when they went out there? We talked about that a while ago, that these tires seem to give up quite a bit. They're softer, but there's no free lunch. If they're softer, they're faster, but they give up over the course of a run. But pretty much Carl Edwards in this practice over these last few laps, he's actually made a couple of runs to get up beside that 24 car a couple of times.
But also it shows the difficulty of getting a pass here at this racetrack. And if Jeff can hold him off in some key areas, then he can hold him off for, for the rest of the lap. I mean, it's not like that every time you get to a corner, the 99 can get inside or drive by Jeff. There's only a few places that are really ideal locations. And if you're running about the same speed, it's easy to keep a guy behind you. As you can see right now, Carl may gain in certain areas, but all of a sudden Jeff will beat him just enough off of one turn or down through the S's a little bit that all of a sudden, as we get into 10, which is going into 11, which is one of the ideal passing places, if he's not in position here, he cannot take advantage of turn 11.
I tell you something else that these guys will be working on here. We talk about gear and transmission rules every single week, and basically most places we go, we have a selection of 2 different rear end gears, a high and a low. Here you have 3 choices, but the other thing, you can work with the transmission ratios. We saw Ron Fellows on the 09 car yesterday just simply putting a different transmission in with a different second gear. You may want different ratios today to race, to get ready to race, than you had yesterday for qualifying.
Larry, Ron even said that. I think I told the team the wrong gear.
Yeah.
Essentially, he said he didn't communicate it well, and it was a miscommunication.
Yeah, at an oval, once qualifying's over, you can't change transmissions because they're trying to discourage teams from building real lightweight qualifying transmissions. But here, you can change transmissions all the way up till in the morning without paying a penalty. The only rule, you can't run an overdrive transmission. 4th gear has to be 1-to-1. Again, just trying to keep the cost of the transmissions down.
Watch the 48 car. You can see his car looks to me like it's a little bit softer than what it was even yesterday. The car's working, picking the right front up, left front up, a lot more body roll than what I saw yesterday. Like maybe they've got that car a little bit softer set up, trying to take advantage of the fact that these tires are going to give up, and they're going to have forward bite as well as keep the front end grip. That's going to be the key, I think, to who wins this race and who can get the best forward bite out of these cars between now and tomorrow. And it's going to be hot and slick as the day progresses on, a lot like we're going to see tomorrow. Now we see a move inside being made by Juan Pablo Montoya in the 42 around Matt Kenseth in the 17. And Matt seemed like he's pretty content to let it go, so maybe he's getting ready to go to school. Matt qualified well yesterday, but he's not been, what you say, historically a great road racer. So if they could get out here with a top 10 finish, I'm sure he'd be real excited.
Yeah, Matt has 9 starts here at Infineon. Didn't pick up his first top 10 finish until a year ago.
Yeah, Matt qualified 10th. He was by far the fastest of the Roush Fenway group. Montoya in that 42 car qualified 17th, but right now Montoya has run 5 laps. He's second quickest in his practice. Man that won here 2 years ago, we know he'll be a factor.
But you said it earlier, Larry, monkey see, monkey do. If I can do what Montoya's doing, maybe I can have a good run tomorrow. So right now, Matt's going to work to try to see where am I getting beat at, what am I doing right, what is the car doing right, and what are we both doing wrong together. So can I make it better? Get back in there and tell them, guys, what I need to work on.
And you can even size up maybe what transmission a guy has in. You may say he's yanking me in second gear. I need a lower second gear in this thing.
And you can make a change.
Marcus Ambrose quickest here at Sonoma. We'll be right back. Well, that side of the 34 car, driven by John Andretti, looks good, but folks, the right side is torn up. We're under caution, a full course caution here at the Infineon Raceway in Sonoma, California. David Gilliland, who finished second here 1 year ago, heavy damage to the front of his Chevrolet.
David qualified 32nd, Jeff. There's no question they'll be going to a backup car with the 71. Not sure about the 34 car of John Andretti. John qualified 41st yesterday. Not sure if they'll be able to repair that car or not, but I think the 71, I would say as we speak, their backup car is coming out.
I mean, he literally had to get the 34 almost up on top of him.
It's the exit of pit road.
Oh, me.
And what John Andretti looked like he was trying to do is trying to wait till there was a little bit of an opening there. That was a strange wreck.
And what a terrible set of circumstances in which to tear up your race car.
On pit road, leaving pit road.
In a practice session. It'd be interesting to get some comments from that driver right there about, you know, what was happening, because, you know, when you're coming off a pit road, guys, at least in self-defense for David Gilliland, you're listening to your spotter. A lot of times you're looking in your mirror and you're anticipating anybody in front of you to be making the move. This is like you do.
Well, how many times have you done that just in traffic?
That's what I'm saying. Is
you think the car in front of you is going to take off?
Yeah, you almost need that third eye, so you're watching the mirror and watching in front of you to a certain degree, and that's exactly what happened. Was 34 was waiting on the opening, let the traffic clear him probably by his spotter, and it just didn't work.
And this is kind of a home game for the owner of this race team, Kevin Buckler. He owns the Adobe Road Winery just up the road, and you can see the paint scheme there on the side of it. So not the way they wanted to get prepared for this race tomorrow.
And particularly, Larry, Jeff, when you think of the fact that here's a guy who finished second, and there was nothing flukish about his run here a year ago, and that's...
And I think, Steve,
break.
if you look back yesterday, as I mentioned, he qualified 32nd, but that was the theme of our qualifying session, is these guys that had fast race cars, you only had one lap of qualifying, part of the go-or-go-homers, and there's the spotters. Honestly, I'm not sure the spotters could even see that area.
I was going to say
right
that
there.
when I made that comment. I was going to let everybody know that, you know, I probably spoke out of turn there, Larry, because of the fact this is one of the places that is the most difficult to get a spot and be able to see this entire racetrack. If spotters cannot see the entire racetrack, and they need help, especially down here on pit road, by the crew chiefs and or secondary spotters to be able to help cover this entire racetrack. And during this practice right here, as you can see them, they could maybe just get a glimpse of the 34, but it'd been very difficult for them to be able to see the rest of them. So a bad situation right here as far as these two guys getting together. They both they were looking forward to some good runs, and it just didn't work.
And Marty, the bad thing is they will probably get no time on the racetrack during this practice session.
Yeah, that's the other point, and we're going to effort words with both of those guys. Let's add Mark Martin to the list of someone who's had a little contact out there. You see the left rear of the 5 car here. They're trying to fix that. We haven't even got to double file restarts yet, and we're already seeing contact in this first practice. Handling-wise, Mark extremely happy with the car. He said a little too free in the high-speed right-handers, a little too tight in turn 11. They also are thinking fuel mileage. They're going to try a different manifold here in the engine, just see what kind of fuel mileage that gets, and fix the left rear quarter panel here.
I tell you, another thing that teams will do in race trim versus qualifying, Jeff, is you have an option of carburetors that you can run. You can run an 830 carburetor, which makes good power, or you can put a 750 on there, gets good fuel mileage.
Turn 2, Larry. I think you and Mark Fine should do your show from outside turn 2.
It's going to be exciting.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Practice on Speed is brought to you by the new Toasty Torpedo. Quiznos. Toasty. Back underway, we had a caution, an incident on pit road involving Johnny Andretti and David Gilliland. Ralph Shaheen down in the garage with John.
Yep, John's crawled out of the car. John, what happened out there from your perspective?
Well, you go out of pit road and it's so tight and narrow there. Practice, there's no reason to just jump in the middle of it. So I was easing up the hill and cars were coming by, and evidently they said David was looking at his switches and going through his switches to turn them on, because you got so many switches in these cars, and didn't see me there, stopped and waiting, and I guess by the time he looked up, it was way too late, and he had a lot of speed, and you know, and he just got in the back of us, and you know, obviously hurt our car, but hurt his car too, I guess. So it's an unfortunate incident. You wish those things wouldn't happen, but it was one of those things that you know, you weren't even racing. You know, you were just kind of getting into it and going out there. So it puts us both behind, I guess.
I mean, that pretty much tells the tale, though. I mean, I totally agree with John. There's no sense in driving right in the middle of a pack of cars coming up the hill, and I think we kind of anticipated David was probably doing something else.
Yeah, distracted, and again, you don't have that benefit of having maybe some help there. Again, this is a very difficult pit road to get on and off of if you're not paying attention.
Last year's winner, Kyle Busch, passed by Marcus Ambrose, who starts third tomorrow, and you're looking to the right. Great look at Marcus Ambrose, a road course racing specialist, if you will. Won 2 championships in the Australian V8 Supercar Series, which is all road courses, 2003, 2004.
And listen to him work the throttle. He's got both hands on the wheel right now, so he's just literally working this thing with his foot. Now he's getting ready to downshift. See him coming there in turn 11. And he really wasn't real aggressive right there, Larry. Kind of surprised me, coming down into there nice and smooth. Got a nice pace going.
Now I believe he just went to 3rd gear there coming down the front straightaway here. You can hear it get into the rev limiter. This is up at turn 2 we've been talking about. You get all the way down to 2nd gear. Still in 2nd gear. Headed up to turn 3 and 3A right there. Turn 4, down what we call the chute. You get all the way up across the rumble strips there.
And Larry, right quick, while we're watching him come around turn 7, notice today quite different than what we saw yesterday. He's not up on these berms, on the bumps, and like he was yesterday, attacking this course. Right now, he's trying to keep all 4 tires on the ground, keep the car really, maintaining grip and not trying to abuse the tires. I mean, I think that's another important thing here. And he's slowly but steadily pulling away from Kyle Busch, who again, won the race here a year ago and is quite a road racer in his own right. But he's doing quite a good job here.
Yeah, he's fastest in his practice now. He has 6 less laps on his tires than Kyle Busch. That's probably one reason he drove away from him.
Ambrose won 20 races in 2 years in the Australian V8 Supercar Series.
Welcome back to Infineon Raceway here in Sonoma, California. We're standing in between the haulers here in the garage area at Infineon. David Gilliland joining us. David, you've gotten back to the pit area. You've been to the infield care center. Can you tell us what happened with that incident with you and John Andretti?
Yeah, it just 100% my fault. I mean, I was leaving pit road and we were sitting there and, didn't have any of my blowers or anything on, getting on the racetrack and just reached down the road race car. I don't race very often, so we reached down, turned on the switches, and John Andretti had stopped, for some cars merging. I just ran right in the back of him. So completely my fault, feel like an idiot, and really disappointed. Our backup car is not as nearly as good as our primary car. I mean, we don't really have 2 road race cars, so just gonna have to make do with what we got. So really bad deal for TRG Motorsports and everybody over here. We've worked really hard, put a lot of effort into this race, and just gonna have to dig down and try and get our backup car as best we can.
Guys, one thing to remember too is they do have a lot of those switches to deal with, and there's not really a smooth spot on this racetrack to do that.
But I'm going to tell you what, I feel so bad for David Gilliland. I think I feel pretty bad for this man right here, Marcos Ambrose. We talked about him a while ago, fastest in practice, qualified 3rd. I think he maybe end up going to the back of the field because I believe they have lost an engine in his 47 car.
We are under caution, and let's take a look at what happened there. Wow,
oh, yeah.
Big explosion.
No question. Basically about the same thing that happened to Brian Semo yesterday in qualifying in the 36 car.
Almost an identical repeat of, and where it happened at, and the way it looked, the whole thing, Larry, he definitely had an engine let go.
And both of them are Toyotas.
Both Toyotas.
You can tell Marcos knew it. He got off the racing surface as quickly as he could. Ambrose was quickest in this practice. He had run 6 laps. Was going to start from row 2 tomorrow, and now he'll have to go to the rear.
And you know, this race, I mean, it can be won from at the back. If you go back to Montoya 2 years ago, he qualified 32nd. Kyle Busch qualified 30th last year, but I just believe the double file restart shootout style is going to change that just a little bit. It's going to be a little tougher.
Wow, a lot of action here in this first of 2 practices in Infineon Raceway. Don't forget, Camping World Truck Series racing coming up next from Milwaukee. Under caution for the second time in this first of 2 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series practices at the Infineon Raceway, Marcos Ambrose losing an engine 25 minutes into a 45-minute practice. Let's go down to the garage and Ralph Shaheen.
Steve, this is number 87 of Joe Nemechek, who's qualified for the race. You can see all the Red Bull guys running around this car. Now, Joe's been looking for a sponsor, hasn't found one just yet. Joe's actually out of the car. Scott Speed is sitting inside the car, who did not qualify yesterday. Is this a business decision?
It definitely is. You know, it's. I'm thankful for all the help that we get from Jay Fry, all the Red Bull guys over there. They do a lot for me. You know, we did a deal like this at Darlington. I mean, if we would have had a sponsor on the car, none of this would even happen. But our sponsor didn't come through, so it's an opportunity for me to help Scott Speed and help all the Red Bull guys back. He just needs to get laps at a lot of these tracks, and he had an awful fast car yesterday, and he just messed up in turn 10. So the car's good. He's just making laps.
It's going to look a little different tomorrow, all stickered up with Red Bull?
Well, I think it's just going to stay the way it is. You know, the big thing is just getting him laps out there. It's, as you know, it's a very, very expensive sport. We got a lot of good things going on right now. Hopefully we're going to have funding to be able to run very competitive the rest of the year. So there's a lot of good things going on. This is just a business deal that we're doing right now, which we need to do, and it's going to give Scott some experience. And you know, it's like qualifying yesterday. We weren't very good when we went into qualifying, but I know what I need to get out there. I've been here for a number of years doing this, and hopefully Scott can gain some experience and knowledge.
Joe Nemechek has been through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in this sport, and just one more gut-wrenching weekend for Joe this year. Marty?
Well, Ralph, probably the most disappointed man in the garage area right now, Marcos Ambrose. I guess the good thing is it happened today instead of tomorrow. Is that the way you look at it?
Oh, not really. We've got to do it tough now, start at the back. It blew up pretty good. It's a real shame for us. Top of the board, qualified 3rd, looking for a great day tomorrow. We're going to have to do it the tough way now, come through the field. But, you know, I've got a great team, a lot of support. We've got good horsepower, and we'll bounce back from this. You know, just hope we get a bit more track time, because we've got to work out what fuel strategy we want to play, and we've got a couple more things to try on the car.
I guess the big question, the one that'll probably keep you awake tonight, is can it be done? Can you win from the back? Well,
I came from dead last. Watkins Linda finished 3rd last year, so yeah, it can be done. But we're going to have to do things a little different. Unfortunately, we'll have to make some gambles on fuel strategy. Just see how it plays out.
All right, and if there's anything good out of this, the last 2 weeks, remember Pocono? Tony Stewart started at the back, won. Last week, Jeff Gordon started at the back, finished 2nd. And granted, those were ovals. This is a road course, but Marcos thinks it can be done here at Infineon.
There's no question, but I mean, he hit the nail on the head, Jeff. It's going to have to come through some creative strategy by Frankie Kerr and that group on pit road. The biggest thing is, I know they'd love to get this engine changed and at least get out there and get a few laps on it. But right now, the second practice ends in less than 2 hours from right now. Like he said, it blew up big time. They'll have to clean all lines, all tanks. I mean, they've got a big undertaking, and it's not even back to the garage area yet, which, again, the safety crew's doing a good job of trying to keep from tearing the front end of that race car up as they load it up.
While they clean up the racetrack and get Marcos Ambrose Toyota off the surface, we'll take a break. Stay with us here at the Infineon Raceway in Sonoma. Back at the Infineon Raceway, we're still under caution. NASCAR and the track safety workers are trying to be as careful with that race car as they can to get it into the garage area. So as Larry and Jeff said, they can get that motor out and put a brand new one in. So they're doing everything they can to keep from compromising the integrity of that race car.
Yeah, and the reason why they're doing this, normally they would push the car in, but you can see that underneath the front of the car, a lot of oil, a lot of speedy dry, and they don't want to, get it all over the racetrack and, mess it up for the rest of the competitors. So NASCAR, along with the safety officials, you can see it right there. Yep. They're trying to contain that oil spillage right there. Again, a lot of oil from underneath this car, and he talked about it. It exploded.
They're going to have the same problem when they get to the garage area when they go to try to get the car off. It's going to be a bit of a challenge trying not to tear the front end, that front splitter area especially.
But you got to, you got to take your hat off to the guys from NASCAR as well as the record crews. They're working very diligently, but they're not rushing to try to get this thing loaded. They do want to respect the fact that this race car does not need to be damaged. You can mess the front splitter up, and man, it would make life 10 times harder than what they've already got faced just changing the engine if they got to make body repairs at the same time. And they're going to have a hard time cleaning that oil system out. If they don't have a complete oil system to be able to take those lines out, put a new oil tank in, it'll take a while to get everything cleaned up.
Yeah, hopefully they won't have to reuse anything that was connected to this engine, because that is a big-time explosion.
I know you were a former crew chief like I myself. I always like to have a complete oil set ready to go, complete all the way down to the oil cooler. You started pulling everything off, you replace everything. You don't wash anything out. You put all new components in place, and then hopefully you can get the engine changed quicker that way.
Bottom of the hour, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race. Weather looks great in Milwaukee. That's 1:30 Eastern. Back underway, you watch Casey Kane and the Budweiser Dodge. Back to the garage and Ralph Shaheen.
Steve, I caught up with Andy Graves. He is the Vice President of TRD, which is Toyota Racing Development. All right, Andy, we've had a couple of issues with Toyota engines this weekend. Can you explain the problem?
Well, it looks like yesterday with the 36 car during qualifying, we had a valve train failure with that car. And then today, Marcus just lost an engine. We're getting ready to look into that. But it appears at first glance it's a different issue. It might be more in the bottom end, but we'll take a good look at it and try to understand it. But right now, they appear totally unrelated, and some of the parts in those two engines are totally separate. So it's nothing that we expect to have more issues with as the weekend goes.
And they're actually two different engines. The engine that was in the 36 comes from one company, and the engine in the 47 is a different one. Is that correct?
That's correct. Two separate engine builders, like I said, with some different parts in each one. So it's nothing for us to get nervous about right now.
Overall, how happy are you with the performance of your engine here this weekend?
It's been great. It's been even though that we won the race last year with Kyle. This year, I think the group of guys that we have, having Marcus on board, Joey Logano, Vickers has really stepped up. Kyle, again, is really strong. We've got a lot of guys at the sharp end of the grid, so it's been going a lot better.
The engine in the 47, guys, was a TRD engine, which comes out of Southern California. The one in the 36 yesterday was an Arrington motor.
And they should be happy because they swept the top 3 spots in qualifying. And, Kyle Petty was working with us in qualifying yesterday, and he was in the area that Brian Semo driving the 36 car blew up. And Kyle seemed to feel like that Brian had missed a shift and over-revved the engine, which would attribute to possibly valve train problem with that.
And we've been watching Marcus Ambrose all morning long. He's been nice and smooth, and he's not really been abusing that race car, so you got to believe he wasn't abusing the engine. So hopefully, whatever the issue was, they'll identify it, but it won't happen again tomorrow, because I think it's going to be a great, opportunity for him to fight his way back up to the front, and I think he can do it. I think he's a good enough road racer, and I think his team is probably ready to poised to do this, so he'll be fun to watch coming from the back.
Bakersfield, California's Casey Mears in the 07 car starts 21st. Right now, he's 5th fastest. NASCAR Sprint Cup practice on speed is brought to you by the new Toasty Torpedo. Quiznos.
Toasty.
5-time winner here at the Infineon Raceway. Jeff Gordon slinging it. Marty has an update on Gordon.
Yeah, guys, we talked earlier and we said that we surmised that he wasn't very happy with the car. That was a true assessment. They have made several changes, however, to the 24 car. They've gotten it better throughout this practice session. Jeff still on the tires he started with, and to answer your question from much earlier, Larry Mack, those were older tires that Jeff did start this practice on. They think being good on old tires is going to be the key tomorrow, so they're trying to stay on this set of tires as long as they can. They've gotten it much better. Jeff's still not completely happy, though.
Well, and that makes sense because this is a 110-lap race. You go into this race knowing I want to make this race on 2 stops. We talk about running the race backwards. If you can run 40 laps on fuel, that means your last pit stop, you want to make it somewhere around lap 68 to 70. Your first pit stop somewhere between lap 26 and 30, a 2-stop race. So you know you're going to be on old tires a lot.
Yeah, unlike any other racetrack, Steve, when you get a caution, you run down and get you 4 fresh ones. Here, you've got to maintain track position if you want to expect to win this race. So you better get that car working on old tires. Just like the 83 car, a pole setter, looks like that's what he's trying to do right now. He's got 13 laps on this run he's working on.
I want to let you know what's happening here. NASCAR has extended this practice by about 5 minutes. However, we are going to get you to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race. We will also show you final practice after the Camping World Truck Series race. The weather is beautiful in Milwaukee. Thanks for being with us. Join us again after the Truck Series race now to Milwaukee, Wisconsin.